Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Spread. This is your guest host, Big Easy, always in studio for this fantasy breakdown with the guru, Jay Dash. This is week 6. Going to be giving you the situational starters, the sleepers, deep sleepers, always comatose.
Believe it.
Jokers, wild cards, all that. We got it all.
We had a rough week last week with our situational starters. One, because Steve Smith went down in the first quarter, and Sterling Shepard had his worst game of his career against Green Bay, which was a pretty good matchup for him. But Travis Benjamin did it big. Overall, our situational starters on the season are, for non-quarterbacks, are averaging 17.07 points per player.
Not bad.
Yeah, and we took one quarterback. He got 28 points. We're going to take one this week as well. Are you going to go with him or someone else?
Sure, I'll start out with him. And for the third week in a row, let's hope he does it big. Brian Hoyer, baby, up against Jacksonville. And, Jacksonville's a team where points are going to be scored against them, and they're going to score some points too. So that's what I'm looking at, points.
That's what I'm looking for as well. And Jacksonville, not good against the pass. They led up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Like you said, Brian Hoyer did it big 3 times, over 300 yards, 3 straight weeks, 2 touchdowns, 3 straight weeks. Hasn't thrown an interception. Last week, 397 yards at Indy. He obviously has Elshon Jeffrey out there. Zach Miller stepped up since he came in. Eddie Royal was beat up last week, had a couple catches here. But Cameron Meredith is the guy that stepped up, had a huge week last week, and he's actually a guy I'm going to talk about in sleepers, or maybe you will. I think he's going to remain involved in this offense, and they got a pretty good running back in Jordan Howard who has taken over the starting role, and he's looked real good so far. But I like the Chicago Bears offense without Jay Cutler, man, and I don't think Cutler's going to get his job back.
It's a shame.
I'm going to go with Doug Baldwin versus Atlanta. Atlanta lets up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. If you look, Seattle's played 2 home games this season. Doug Baldwin, in those 2 games, 17 catches, 256 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, on the road, just 74 yards and no touchdowns. So there's a big difference there. Obviously, coming back home, like I said, versus Atlanta. Lockett has been banged up the past couple weeks. He's supposed to get more involved. I think that could help Doug Baldwin out as well. I think Atlanta can score points, too. I know Seattle's defense is great and everything, but Atlanta's offense has looked like one of the best in the NFL so far this season with that double-headed monster in Devontae Freeman and Coleman in the backfield. And obviously they got one of the best receivers in the game in Julio Jones. So I think Atlanta can put up points, and I think Seattle's going to have to pass in this game, and Doug Baldwin's going to do what he's done so far at home. One other receiver, Mike Wallace, going up against the New York Giants. That's in New York.
Going to give him another shot.
Well, look, like I said, Steve Smith, he went down in the first quarter last week. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to play. It's really Pitta and Wallace out there are the best options for Flacco at this point. And if you look, Mike Wallace over the past 2 games, 21 targets. So that's a huge amount of targets over that span. He has double digits in fantasy and PPR in 4 or 5 games this season as well. So it's not like he's been inconsistent like he has been in the past. And really, he's needed more this season. And we know Joe Flacco at least has that deep ball as well. And Mike Wallace can always come up with the deep ball. But Mike Wallace, he's been very consistent this season, has a great matchup this week. And Joe Flacco is going to need him without Steve Smith being in there. All right, let's move on to our sleepers.
Well, for this week's sleeper, I'm going to go with Golden Tate going up against them LA Rams.
The Golden Taint.
G-Taint. He had 7 receptions in week 1, but he hasn't had more than 4 since. So that's what's considered a sleeper here in my book, right?
Please, well, I mean, if he hasn't been as bad as he's been this season, he'd be a must start. I mean, really coming into the season, he was a guy that you wanted in your lineup, and it really hasn't worked out. Now, Stafford has looked great this season. He's spreading the ball around more without Kelvin Johnson, but Golden Tate hasn't been able to take advantage. He hasn't had more than 41 yards receiving in any game. Now, their offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter, you got to love that name. He promised a big week last week versus Philadelphia, and he only had 3 catches for 39 yards, so he didn't do it last week as well when they tried to get him more involved. I think they actually gave him 3 rushes as well, so they're trying to get this guy more involved because he is one of their best playmakers. Now, Marvin Jones, he's beat up a little bit. Eric Ebron, he's beat up. Theo Riddick is listed as out now. He hasn't practiced this week, and he was actually supposed to be their healthiest running back. I think Jim mentioned in our last segment, they brought in Justin Forsett because really they don't have anyone healthy in the backfield. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get or who's going to be healthy in his game, but Golden Tate's the healthiest guy they got out there going up against LA, a home game. I think Detroit will be able to score points in his game, and Golden Tate will finally have his breakout game. I'm going to go with Cameron Meredith, a guy I said I would mention with Brian Hoyer, your situational starter, going up against Jacksonville, not good against wide receivers. Eddie Royal, like I said, he was banged up last week, and Meredith stepped in for him. 9 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. I actually had him in my daily fantasy, took him out when I found out Royal was going to play. That was a big mistake. Cameron Meredith is going to stay involved in this offense, I have to believe. In the way Brian Hoyer is playing right now, they got good options in Jeffrey and Zach Miller out there. I like what they got going on in their offense. And Cameron Meredith, I think, is going to be a good receiver moving forward, someone you can play in your flex position. Right now, he's considered a sleeper. If he keeps doing it, he'll move up to situational starter soon.
High expectations, Cameron.
And the little white boy, Cole Beasley, we're going to go with at Green Bay. Now, like I said, I took Sterling Shepard last week at Green Bay. He didn't get it done, but Green Bay, not good against fantasy wide receivers so far this season. Still, Cole Beasley's been pretty consistent, has double-digit fantasy points in all 5 games. That is in PPR, and he really hasn't blown up. So, I mean, he's not doing big things. I think the most points he has is 15, and that was last week because he scored his first TD against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, if you look, the Dallas defense, they've been great so far, 17 points or less in each of the last 3 games. So really, the offense hasn't really needed to pass too much. Going into Green Bay, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to put up points on his defense, and that's going to force Dak Prescott to have to pass a little bit more, and Cole Beasley's going to be able to have more targets than he had over the past 2 games. To start the season, when Dez Bryant was healthy, he had a ton of targets. I think he started out with 12 targets in week 1, had 8 or 7, maybe 9 in week 2. And then when Dez Bryant went down, it seemed like Cole Beasley's targets went down, although his PPR fantasy numbers really weren't affected. But Dez Bryant could come back this week, so that could actually give Beasley more targets. And like I said, going up against Green Bay, I think they're going to have to score more points than they have the past few weeks, so they're going to be passing a little bit more.
Coming up this Sunday, they're going to be calling him Cole Beastly.
Believe it. How about deep sleepers, man? Oh, we didn't.
Putting me to sleep, he's deep sleepers.
Yeah, hold on real quick. We didn't even mention our sleepers, non-quarterbacks. We averaged 13.83 per player.
That's right.
Deep sleepers, our non-quarterbacks, are 14.33 points per player. We took one quarterback. It was Jay Cutler. He got hurt, got us 3 points. We're going to go with a quarterback this week, though, to try to get that average back up.
Right. I'm not going to go with him, though. I looked at this dude earlier, and I got a little smirk on my face, but then I went, forget about him. But Spencer Ware, Kansas City going up against Oakland. They give up the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. Jamal Charles, he's still really not doing much out there yet, so they got to do something. They got to run, and that's who's going to get the ball.
Yeah, if you look, he didn't have double digits each of the past 3 weeks, but it was against Houston and New York Jets, who are one of the top teams at stopping the run, and Pittsburgh, who can stop the run. So Spencer Ware's had a little bit of trouble, even with Jamal Charles back, and everybody's on Jamal Charles now, saying he's going to get the workload this week. Spencer Ware, that's why I had him in the deep sleeper range, because everybody's given up on Spencer Ware. I think we play in Yahoo. I think they have him projected at 5 points, so they're giving up on Ware. I disagree with that. He's going to stay involved in his backfield. Like I said, he didn't get double digits in fantasy the past few weeks, but he had tough matchups. Remember in week 1, he had a soft matchup and he blew up. So I think he's going to stay involved. I think Charles will come back and have a good game as well. But at Oakland, man, Oakland cannot stop the run. I think both of these running backs can get it done. I'm going to go with a Buffalo wide receiver, Robert Woods, versus the San Francisco 49ers. They let up the 15th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, so it's not like a great matchup or anything. But since Sammy Watkins was injured, he's on the IR. He's not coming back this week. Robert Woods has 24 targets in 3 games. Now, he didn't really blow up in that time span, and actually last week had just 2 catches for 26 yards at LA, so it wasn't the greatest matchup. But before that, he had 2 straight double-digit fantasy performances. He's coming back home. This is the best matchups he's had since he became one of Taylor's best targets, like I said, with Sammy Watkins down. So I think Robert Woods has a chance to have a big game this week and get close to 20 points even. And that quarterback we were talking about was Brock Osweiler. A lot of people will disagree with this probably because he's been playing so bad. Going up against Indy, we know Indy can be beat in the past. They let up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. But if you look, Brock Osweiler has been terrible on the road. You look, his 2 worst games, at New England, at Minnesota. Those are also tough matchups, so give him a little bit of a break there. And if you look at home, 5 of his 6 TDs this season have come at home, so he plays better at home. Hopkins is a great player. He's been up and down this season along with Brock Osweiler. I think when they come back home here, he's going to have a little bit easier of a time against this Indy defense. I think he's going to have a good game. And we know Will Fuller is a good receiver out there too so far this season, although he's a little bit banged up. But I think Lamar Miller can help too. I think he's going to have one of his best games on the ground. That's going to open things up in the passing game. And Brock Osweiler is going to get you enough fantasy points to be worthy of putting in your lineup if you really need a quarterback this week. What do you think, man? You feeling it now?
Yeah, I don't mind it. He's due. It's due. Indianapolis is garbage.
Defensively, at least. And really, Luck hasn't stepped up to be what he should be.
Done much. It was funny because... who'd you mention? Lamar Miller?
Yeah.
I thought about maybe putting him in the daily lineup. But
it's not a bad matchup.
Yeah, I didn't end up, though. My daily, it's a stretch. Going to give Mariota to start at QB. We'll see what he does.
He's had trouble at home this season. I will say that. He's been a lot better on the road than at home, but it is a nice matchup against Cleveland, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Brian Hoyer. I'm all about the Brian Hoyer right now. And my running backs, I'm going Le'Veon Bell and Tevin Coleman. Like I said, I like that 2-headed monster out there in Atlanta, and I think Tevin Coleman is going to do a lot in the passing game this week.
Right. You took the slim lead so far this year in daily over me, and
yeah, you got me 3-2 per week still, though.
I had a bad week last week, but we'll rebound.
Believe it.
Yeah, my buddy asked me earlier who should he play, Fleener or Pitta. Went with Pitta.
Definitely
you
go
don't
with
like
Pitta.
Fleener.
Well, there's a lot of targets out there for Drew Brees. He really doesn't have a favorite target. He goes to a lot of people. Fleener isn't the best player. He can't catch really that well, and he hasn't been that good this season. He has had one big game and really a bust outside of that. And Pitta, like I said, Pitta and Mike Wallace are the only 2 players that Flacco really has to throw the ball to right now with Steve Smith out. And Pitta's been consistent this season. He hasn't blown up or anything, but I think you can trust to get double digits out of him.
And what would you categorize Sammy Coates as this week?
Yeah, remember we made him our extra deep sleeper last week. He definitely moves up, and actually he moved the whole way up to a situational starter, and I like it this week at Miami. Miami's defense is garbage. I think, they can't stop the run, so they're going to have to find a way to try to stop Le'Veon Bell. So they're going to have to stack the box, and I think Sammy Coates can beat him deep a few times. I think you go ahead and play him again this week.
Nice. Fans, you got any other questions, any other situational starters you think we missed or deep sleepers you think that should be talked about or maybe put up against another player, and we'll break them down. We'll tell you who you got to play. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/betthespread. What's that Twitter handle?
At bet_the_spread.
And how do you get at Jim directly? Start getting at that dude.
At bet Jim to win. At bet Jim to win.
At bet Jim to win. Skyping hero. That's it. Fantasy wrap up.
Believe it.